Well, I'd like to welcome everybody to the June 2018 Mississippi PowerShell User Group. Tonight we have Josh King presenting Just Scrape Off the Black Bits using BurntToast to display timely notifications. And with that, take it away, Josh.
Perfect, thank you. I'll just go ahead and present my desktop. Let me know when you can see that. I'm not seeing a preview on my end, but it says it's presenting.
Yep, I've got it now.
Perfect. Cool. So yeah, we're going to take a bit of a deep dive. Well, not a deep dive. We're going to dive into Toast notifications today, at least, and specifically my BurntToast module. So I am Josh King. You can find me on Twitter at WindowsNZ, and my blog is king.geek.nz. And if you can't tell from the accent and those various URLs, I'm from New Zealand. So, yeah, it's mid-afternoon for me, so really good time. So I guess the first question is, what is toast? And unfortunately, we're not talking about cooked bread. You'll have actually seen them in basically any modern operating system. So Android uses them, Mac uses them, Windows 8 and Windows 10 uses them. And sort of the generic definition for them are they're an unobtrusive UI element. They auto-expire. They provide useful information. And after they've expired, they generally go into some sort of widget for later retrieval. On Windows, that's the Action Center. On Android, that's your notification shade. And I don't use Apple products, so I don't know what you'd call it over there, but I assume they've got something as well. So, blast from the past-ish, here's Windows 8, and a Toast notification would have looked something like this up the top right of your screen. Nowadays, on Windows 10, they dramatically changed everything, and it's now down the bottom. Behind the scenes on Toasts, in Windows at least, you're dealing exclusively with XML. So to give a little bit of a peek behind the scenes, and we're not going to delve too much into the XML, this is what my default notifications look like at any rate. So there's a couple of elements there, and that XML results in the toast you can see up the top right of the screen there. And the elements map through as you might expect. That first text element maps through to the bold heading on the top there. And that image that's marked as app logo shows up on the left. Now, I mentioned Windows 8, and I mention it for a reason, because under Windows 8, it was all based on templates. So you needed to know what you wanted your toast to look like, pick the template that matched what you were trying to achieve, and then that would dictate the XML you were manipulating and then firing through to the operating system. So I've chosen a random sample of 4 of them. I think there was a total of 8, and I've chucked a link to the docs up the top there if you are interested in those at all. They do still work on Windows 10, but with Windows 10 they introduced adaptive toasts. So I believe this is more for backwards compatibility more than anything, but the template name for adaptive toasts is Toast Generic, and you'll be seeing, well, you will have seen that I use Toast Generic on that previous slide. And this gives you the freedom to set up your toasts however you like, so you can add images and progress bars and all sorts. And I make a joke here, freedom to have your toast your way. I'm partial to some thick Marmite. Again, being from New Zealand. So, enough with the slides. Let's head over and do some code. So this is the only time you'll see some XML, but I did just want to show that even if you wanted to work with direct XML, you can generate a toast notification using them. So this is the same example that I had previously. It's exactly the same. I copied and pasted it out of my slides. And behind the scenes, there's this value called an app ID. This is the only time you're going to be seeing an app ID during these demos, but it is needed for this particular one because I need to provide it down the bottom. And what this tells the operating system is what application generated the toast. So by default, when you install BurntToast, it's going to set the app ID to match Windows PowerShell. But there's some issues involved in that, and if you want to read more about it, I've included a link there. So following this this example through with XML, you need to load up some .NET classes, XML documents, Toast Notification Manager, etc. And then start loading that XML string into a specifically formatted type of XML called an XML document. And then you create a Toast Notification object, and then you use the Toast Notification Manager to show it. So if I go ahead and run all of that, I'm seeing an old toast. Yep, there we go. My computer's catching up. I think when I plugged in my external monitor there, it turned on Do Not Disturb. So yeah, as you can see, that XML resulted in this toast. And just to make sure there's no funny business going on, I'm going to run that again and make sure I see what I expected to see. Cool. And now it's playing catch up even more. Cool. So that was a whole lot of code. With BurntToast, which is available on the gallery and you can install using install module, all of that code I just showed on the previous demo is contained, well, this function results in exactly the same output. So if I run new BurntToast notification, we see that default again. So, and for some reason, I'm seeing every notification twice. This is going to be fun. I have sorry, I'm going to make a note. I think that's a bug in my latest version of BurntToast, unfortunately. Okay. So, the reason why I wrote BurntToast is that I was running scripts that were taking a really long time to execute, and I didn't want to keep up that console or the ISE on my monitor so that I could tell when it was done. So what BurntToast allowed me to do was chuck a little bit of code at the bottom of my scripts, and I'd get a notification that popped up when it was done. So one of the first types of notifications I would have seen, and unfortunately Windows spoiled the surprise a little bit there, is okay, there we go. Something odd's happening there. So I would just put a generic title in there with some information about when the toast was generated, and as you can see, I can change the picture there. So how that's all happening is I can include an array of text to new BurntToast notification. The first one you provide is going to be the header. That's going to show up bold, and then subsequently any other strings you provide are going to be underneath that and not bold. Then provide a path to an app logo. This can be either a local image or an image out on the internet. However, if you do point at an image on the net, it's going to download it into your temp directory and use it from there. And then there's a bunch of sounds you can use, and we'll look at a few more of those later on. In fact, we'll look at one now. So the next thing people start looking at with when they're playing around with toasts is setting up an alarm. So this one's being a little bit facetious. It's telling me that it's time to get off the computer. And in this case, I've set my alarm to alarm 5. Now these alarms are built into Windows, so you'll likely have heard them before. And I'm going to turn up my volume a bit so you can probably hear this a bit better. And also I've set snooze and dismiss to true. So when I run this, get rid of the duplicate notification. Sorry, I need to get rid of that and possibly change this to something a little bit quieter so I can point at bits. We go. So turning on snooze and dismiss, that's a system level thing where it's including a couple of UI elements. So it's included a drop-down list here for setting some times. So 10 minutes, and I can click dismiss. It's going to disappear for 10 minutes and then pop back up again after the time's elapsed. If I click snooze, it'll do that. If I click dismiss, it disappears. And if I click on it, it disappears as well. So, with system-generated buttons, you can create your own buttons as well. And you do that using the new BT button. So for anything but the default BurntToast notification function, functions within this module are all going to be prefixed with BT. But in this example, it's similar to the long-running script one, except when it fires off, I'm assuming that this script has generated some sort of report. And instead of digging for that report in the file system, I'm going to give myself a button that I can click to open it up if I want to see it later. So in text, first line is going to be bold, that's my header. Second line isn't bold and it goes underneath. I'm specifying a app logo, choosing a sound, and then I'm providing that button object I created above to button. And I didn't mention it earlier, for the sake of screen real estate, I'm splatting these here, but they'll all show up to provide directly to the function. So go ahead with that. And sorry about this, get rid of the duplicate. There we go. So showing up down there, you can provide multiple buttons. It's as simple as just providing an array of them. So button object, comma, second button object, and they'll line up. I don't remember offhand what the maximum number of buttons you can provide is, but I've never needed more than 2 personally. And then if I click open report, it's going to go ahead and fire up that hastily generated report that I've created for this.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, go for it.
So the toast is the toast mechanism is a Windows thing. So I could have 5 other scripts running at one point, or even the task scheduler kicking off things, and then once they're done, throwing things into the toast that it then notifying me. Is that my understanding? Am I understanding that right?
So these toasts are all being handled via a Windows API, and Windows handles queuing them up, so if you fire through a bunch of them at once, it's going to show them in sequence as it received them. And they can come from all sorts of sources, and it can slot in between, like the ones you're getting from Outlook or Skype or any other programs on your PC.
And is it user-centric? Like
yes. So
count on the machine.
Yes, so they have to be run as the user that's interactively logged in. So on Windows, I can't run a script as my admin account and display it for my normal user account unless I go ahead and invoke command as my regular account. there's ways of getting around that using scheduled tasks, but I'm trying to make that a bit more friendly.
Mm-hmm. Cool. All right. Thank you.
No problem. So I mentioned progress bars before, and this example actually came from someone that had posted a use case for BurntToast over on Reddit. So obviously progress bars you use to display the progress of something. So generally you would see it used for, hey, I'm installing some software and I'm 50% complete, or we're copying files and we're 80% complete. What this person had actually done is they were using a toast notification to show the toner levels for one of their printers. So again, like buttons, there's a new BT progress bar function. There's a status value here, and that's, you'd normally see that as like I'm copying file X or whatever, but for this use case I'm showing the name for each of the colors, and under value you provide a double, so obvious, so 0.5 being 50%, 1 being 100%, and I believe it's accurate to the closest %, I think. Anyway, I've got all progress bars here, one for cyan, magenta, yellow, black, and like buttons, I can provide multiple progress bars to my toast by providing the collection of them. This one, before I send it, because I'm not going to be able to talk over the sound, we'll point out that this is like an alarm. Call 2 is loud and it's looping and it makes the toast stay up for a while. So yeah, you won't be able to hear me when it's going off. But when I run this, I'm going to run that again a bit quieter. Of course, we're getting the duplicate thing again. There we go. So as you can see, the progress bars are showing up in the order that I provided them. So cyan first, magenta, then yellow, then black. And the bars light up based on the value I gave them, and you can see some display text on the right showing that represented as a percentage representation. Can change that. So there's a value display option here, and if I went and put some sort of a comment in there, and then rerun this, it should rid of the duplicate, replace that percentage with whatever string of provided. Oh, all right. Thanks for letting me know, Andrew. From the sounds of it, you can't hear the sound of the toast anyway, so I'll feel free to talk over them. This is the opposite problem I had when recording my Lightning demo. So I've started showing some of these various functions. There's actually a bunch of them that sit behind new BurntToast notification. Cool. Thanks for confirming that, guys. Yes, so there's a lot of functions sitting behind new BurntToast notification. So this is going back to that first default notification I showed, where basically I'm creating text objects, I'm creating image objects, audio objects, and then passing them up the stack. So in the XML, you can see this toast, then visual, then binding, text, and image. Those are all represented within these functions. So we've got, well, toast ends up being something that's abstracted away, but we've got content, visual, binding, audio, text. Remember the order that these go in. I tend to go to old blog posts where I've explained this in the past and just start from that as a base. And I'll explain in a moment why I would want to go down to these advanced functions. But just to run those, you can see we're getting a default notification again. That's a lot of code that I've shown is abstracted away by one command in the past. But where you might end up needing to use them is to do more, hence why I call them advanced things. So in this example, I've gone and got some of the code from the previous button example, but now instead of putting a button on my toast, I'm going to make the toast itself clickable. So when I click the toast, it opens the port. And I've done that using the launch parameter down here, which simply points at the path to that report file and setting the activation type to protocol. It's, at the moment, that's the only protocol type that actually works, but I've included it anyway. So, just going down the this example, you can see I've had to create two text objects. These are the same as what I provided here. Yeah, I just had to provide the strings and the function figured it out for me. This time I have to go and create text object, that content, and then down here under the binding, provide those two text elements as children. So when I run this, and I expect to see the, let's go again. So you can see my report generated toast as we had previously with the button. And if I click it, it opens that PDF again, which is just the logo for this function. Jeffrey, yes, I believe launch can accept UNC paths, but I don't think it can accept URIs, so it can't grab content from the internet yet. And one thing to note there, pointing it at a file with a file extension, what Windows is going to do is it's like popping that into your run dialog. It's just going to open that file and whatever the default is on your system. So for me, a text file might open in Notepad++, whereas someone else it might open in Notepad or WordPad for whatever reason. I can see some more people typing, so I might just give them a chance to ask a follow-up, maybe? Cool. So, I'm going to close a couple of these because, there we go. So the last demo I had written here, just showing some of the more, I guess, adaptive things you can do with a adaptive toast notification, such as using images and all sorts. Specifically for this one, I'm using the text, marking it as my final demo, thanking you all for having me. But the key thing on this one is this hero image object, which is the same as the previous images I've generated using the new BT image function, but I'm using this hero image flag at the end. And then I provide that to my binding as a separate entity, much like the app logo. And when I run this, there we go. So that hero image shows up above the toast, stuff. You can put images within the body of the toast. I think images will go to the bottom regardless of where you put them in relation to text. So that, let me create another image here. Let's call it MS image and just get rid of hero image. Now, if I pop that in the middle of my children and run this again, actually, this might be a... Yeah, there we go. So it put that image that's in there as a child at the bottom of the toast rather than mixed in with the text. And I don't think there's any way to stop that. I'll touch on that a bit at the end. Well, actually, when we get back to the slides, there's a question there about it only working for the current user. Cool. So yeah, that's the final demo. There's a ton of stuff you can do with this, and I see people posting their use cases for toast notifications on Twitter quite often, and I really love seeing that. Some of the ones I've seen recently have been mocking a notification that your boss has emailed you. So it's fudging the Outlook logo and the various makeup you'd have there. Yeah, and the printer toner one was another one I saw come through on Reddit. So yeah, really cool stuff. So what's not working? And I'll cover the current user thing at the end of this slide. Or rather, what's still being implemented. So there's a few things that don't work, but that's more because I haven't figured out how to make them work yet. So I showed in the buttons and being able to click on a toast and this opening up a file. A lot of other apps will allow you to click a toast and say, open up that email message or reply to an IM or do something like that. Fortunately, PowerShell can't subscribe to Windows RT events, which toast events fall under. So I need to consider shipping a DLL or an EXE or something that sits in the middle there and allow me to take actions when a user clicks the toast. Future versions are going to have updatable toasts. So at the moment I didn't demo it, but it's possible to replace a toast. But when you replace a toast, it shows back up on the user's screen. That's not always great. Like, you can update the progress on a progress bar, but you might just want that hidden away in the Action Center. And I'll show you what my Action Center looks like after all these demos in a moment. I've heard reports that it doesn't work on Windows 10 Home Edition. And unfortunately, I don't currently have access to Windows 10 Home Edition. So if you're running Windows 10 Home, do you mind downloading BurntToast and giving it a go for me? And the next version of BurntToast is going to have updatable help. That's more of a back-end thing that I've been struggling with for years at this stage, but I'm committed to getting it going. So back to the question that came through in chat was about it only working with current users, and that's right. So if I execute new BurntToast notification I'm Josh King, I log into my computer as Josh King, but sometimes I run my PowerShell prompt as my admin account. If I run new BurntToast notification as my admin account, it won't show up on my desktop. I can get around that by running invoke command and saying, hey, run as my other account, and then I'd have to provide credentials. Or what I'm playing around with is doing a scheduled task, which runs as soon as it's registered, and that runs as the user I want it to run as. So there's a bit of that needs to happen in that regard. But yeah, unfortunately, the command needs to run as the user that's interactively logged in. Right. Takeaways. A toast is all XML. So if you're comfortable working with XML, you can work on it directly. You can chuck in, or you can pass to the Windows APIs XML document that represents the toast you want. But luckily, if you're someone like me that doesn't like working with XML, you don't need to touch it. There's other tools out there that allow you to do that. Namely, and that's what BurntToast is using, is you can use the Windows Community Toolkit, or what was called the UWP Community Toolkit. You want to roll your own tools. This is what you could bake into a C# project to have that project use toast notifications. Or just use BurntToast. It's available on GitHub. It's on the gallery. And let me know your use cases, because I love hearing about them. And it lets me know where focus effort in future versions, because if I know a particular area is getting a lot of use or there's a lot of demand in an area that doesn't yet work, I'll focus on it. So yeah, thank you all. The link here for the slide deck and demos. If there's any questions, or if you want to see a specific do something with a toast, I can quickly run through that in VS Code while I've got it open. And yeah, thank you all. Just like my speed presentation, this one went a little bit quicker than I had planned in practice, but them's the breaks.
Well, thank you, Josh.
Thank you.
I've got a really good use case for this. I had something I was gonna, write some code to alert me to something.
Yes.
And I was gonna write the code, the script to perform a task and then alert me. Mm-hmm. But now you've done half my job for me.
So I'll go and plug my.
Whenever I get what I'm talking about written, I'll send you a link to my blog article.
Awesome. So I'll go ahead and plug something on my blog. One of my earliest use cases was, in fact, it was my first blog post about this function from the looks of it, this module, but it was something I called Stack Watch, I think. But what it would do is it watched the RSS feed for PowerShell questions on Stack Overflow. So there was a bunch of code here that did that. And then we would end the little something like this. So it would pop up a toast if a new PowerShell question came through and give me a link to open that up in a browser. So that one of the answers I gave before is you can give a URL. It's just going to open up a new browser. And I said I was going to show my Action Center after all of that had run. You can see under BurntToast I've got a history of a bunch of toasts that I didn't dismiss. So I mentioned at the start they generally go to a widget for later retrieval, and that. Expiry prompt is a good one. Sorry, I'm catching up on chat here. Yeah. Thanks for that, Fred. I'm going to have a look at that one. Cool. So, yeah, if you've got any other questions, feel free to hit me up on Twitter, and I'll. Well, it's the middle of the afternoon here, so I'll be on Twitter for many hours.
So still some of the use cases are typically run as like a background job, and then this is the completion of the jobs. Is that what it's kind of used for? Or is
Yeah,
it,
so that's what I mainly use it for, but as others have mentioned, use it for that a password's expired or, yeah, infrequent stuff that you do still want to be made aware of. So a quote-unquote poor man's monitoring solution with it, where you're checking CPU utilization or something and then popping up a message when it gets too high.
but that would be continuously running, or it's scheduled on a scheduled task kind of thing, right?
Yeah, so if I was to do that, I mean, I wouldn't, but if I was, I'd have it as a scheduled job that perhaps runs once every 5 minutes, or if I can handle it, and then if it meets a certain condition, then it will fire off the toast. What you might need to do is put in some sort of logic there to not retoast too often. So you'd need to keep a log of when the last one was and not do it again for X number of iterations, but it's definitely something you could do.
Yeah,
Can
so
you programmatically dismiss a toast that you haven't seen? Kind of like the updatable thing?
You can update a toast you haven't, you can replace a toast, and what that'll do is you can update a toast, and if it's in the action center, it will rip out the old one and replace it with a new one, but that's going to show up on the UI as well, so it will look like a new toast, but it will also replace the old one. The API does allow for quietly updating one, so if it's in the action center, it'll get new content and it won't re-toast on the screen. I just haven't got that working yet.
That's cool.
Of course, with anything on GitHub, we send through issues and pull requests and anything if you feel like.
yeah, I had no idea these things were called toast, to be honest with you. I was just Googling it, and I'm used to them being called balloon notifications, but I guess that's the older style.
Yeah, that was what they were on Windows 7, I believe, and earlier.
Yeah, Mike, we're dating ourselves.
Yeah. Hey, I'd be happy to say that I'd be pretty young if I started with Windows 7. I started way before that. That's one of the reasons I don't show off my Microsoft transcript. But yeah, I was
I've
like,
still got Windows 3.1 floppies sitting in my desk drawer down in the office.
yeah, I'm way older than XP. It's funny put that in there.
Don't make me turn on my webcam and then I'll show you my 5 1/4.
But is it a 360K or a 1.2 meg? 5 1/4.
I actually don't know. I have to look it up and open it up.
It's probably 1.2 meg. My first job, I worked for IBM, and I still used to service some 8-inch floppy disk drives.
I still have my second hard drive. It was a Plus hard card. It's a drive on a card, full-length card. That was a 20 meg drive.
Yeah, the first drive that I owned was a 40 meg drive, but it was an MFM hard drive. You had to park the hard drive before you moved the computer.
And they cost a small fortune.
Yeah, and it cost us. I remember I bought 16 megabytes of 60 nanosecond SIM memory. It was 4 meg chips, and I want to say I spent $400 on that memory.
Jeez.
Yeah, I did this similar thing too with same type of RAM too. I was trying to boost my machine so I could run OS2 Warp.
Actually, it was $600. It was $150 a chip for 4 MB chips. And I got the fast ones, the 60 nanosecond instead of the 70 nanosecond, which it probably didn't really make a difference. But yeah, I worked for IBM when OS2 Warp came out, and I got it on 3.5 floppies, and it was like maybe 26 floppy disks. So yeah, I'm really dating myself. But I was like, yeah, I'm going to write a PowerShell script to check something, and then if there's things available, then I'll do a balloon tip. So now I know I can use this module to do a toast.
So so do you see people like deploying this out as to possibly pushing it out through the gallery and then just running it randomly? Because you have to import the module and then run it. There's no other, binary dependencies or anything like that, right?
No, so there are some DLLs, but they're shipped with the module. So to be clear, those DLLs are the Windows Community Toolkit. But yeah, I have to assume somebody is deploying this across a reasonably large network, because otherwise I don't see how this got so many downloads, to be frank. But yes, I do potentially, for myself, once I have got something set in stone for how I'm going to run it as other users, and it might just be that it's part of a login script or something, or a deployment script that's running as the user anyway. We'll probably use this in our organization as well, instead of an old Winbox thing we used to show during deployments.
The only challenge I see with deploying anything when using a client management, like for instance Configuration Manager, is that the process is typically run under the system account, in the system context. And so if you wanted to show some sort of toast while the account is while the process is running in the system account, you're going to have to find a way to pipe that to execute under the system's user. Hence, I posted that
Yes.
PowerShell app deployment toolkit sample that could be useful for something like this.
Yes, I think I'm going to be reading and borrowing.
Well, the toolkit also has very similar aspects of what you've accomplished. But yeah, definitely look into it. The only challenge you're going to have when running anything as a scheduled task is figuring out the current logged on user. And so hence why that's always been a bit of a problem, because you have to be able to determine who's a current interactive session and then be able to pipe that as part of the task creation process.
Yes. So an earlier version of this used to check for that, and it would show a warning to say, hey, you're running this as the wrong user, it's not going to work. But that ended up getting way too clunky and didn't work 100% of the time, so I just ended up sort of trying to document it rather than warn. But I might have to revisit that.
Yeah, but love the demo. Great job, and love the code. Thank you for sharing
Awesome.
that.
Thank you.
Yeah, this was very, very educational.
Yeah, I really did appreciate it. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. And yeah, like I say, if you find a use for it, please do let me know.
What time is it there, Josh?
It is currently, well, it's coming on 2:30 in the afternoon.
It's 10:30 here. The day before. Your day ahead.
Yeah, it's so it's Wednesday afternoon here.
Y'all had y'all's PowerShell web thing the other morning.
Oh, the Australia-New Zealand group?
Yeah.
You tune in for that one?
I was going to, but I couldn't figure out the right time.
Well, the good news is that's up on YouTube now. We managed to get a recording.
Yeah, I tweet bookmark that tweet.
Awesome.
Mike, to all of y'all, Mississippi PowerShell Users Group, thanks once again for a great presentation. Thank you, Josh.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you guys for attending. And so next month, well, I'm not exactly sure who it is. Well, I know who it is next month. I'm not sure what their topic is, so I'll get that posted, though. I think I'll go ahead and stop the recording at this point.